if you hadn't heard, Diddy's home was raided, and it's raided by an investigation group, part of the Homeland Security, who investigates sex trafficking. So Diddy was not at any of the homes. LA, New York, Miami. I think the ones in Miami and LA were being raided. There was video of some of his kids who are adults. The ones who are adults, he had these minor kids with him. So let's listen to a little bit of what's going on with that from here and comment. This will be a quick segment here.
Yesterday, federal agents executed search warrants at 2 properties in Los Angeles and Miami belonging to rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs. A source familiar with the matter told NBC News that Combs is the subject of a federal investigation following a wave of lawsuits that have been filed against him. Those lawsuits, including from his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, alleged physical and sexual abuse, which Combs has denied. The source also confirmed that 3 women and a man have been interviewed by federal officials in Manhattan in relation to allegations of sex trafficking, sexual assault, and the solicitation and distribution of illegal narcotics and firearms. Late today, Combs' lawyer issued the following statement. Quote, yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There was no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. Mr. Combs was never detained, but spoke to and cooperated with authorities. Despite media speculation, neither Mr. Combs nor any of his family members have been arrested, nor has their ability to travel been restricted in any way. This unprecedented ambush, paired with an advanced coordinated media presence, leads to a premature rush to judgment of Mr. Combs and is nothing more than a witch hunt based on meritless accusations made in civil lawsuits. There's been no finding of criminal or civil liability with any of these allegations. Mr. Combs is innocent and will continue to fight every single day to clear his name, unquote. Joining me now, Ms. Touré, host of Masters of the Game. The new season premieres Friday on the Griot. What is going on? Because we did also see Diddy's sons arrested. They were detained. They weren't arrested. They were just detained. Yeah. But what is going on?
Well, it seems that there are several people who are saying things about Combs to the government, and they are trying to figure out what's going on. I found it interesting that they...
So, there's a lot going on. This has been covered the situation, what's happening to Sean Diddy Combs has been covered before. It was covered by the Sabby and JB show about the initial allegations with Cassie, his ex-girlfriend, the recording artist. So that has been covered. That sort of triggered more lawsuits, some from men claiming some sort of sexual battery or sort of a sexual offense. I think it's 2 or 3 after Cassie, which triggered some law enforcement to sort of look into it. And it sounds like what Touré is saying, there was some people that also tipped off or said some things. I guess you can call that a tip. And here we are. Diddy was traveling with his 2 twin daughters who are both underage. They're 17. So that's who he was traveling with. Now let him add a little bit more color to this as far as background. When I say color, a little more color to it, to the story.
He had enough to get a search warrant, right, for multiple places, but not enough yet to arrest him. So we're in the investigation phase, and clearly they don't care if we let him know that we know what's going on.
Yeah.
But it seems part of his whole life, his whole journey has been this sort of scorched earth campaign where you see him continuing to succeed or do big things and leave people in his wake hurt. We go back to CCNY, which a party that he over promoted, that people ended up getting killed. You think about the many artists who either left, in complaint, or went to the church, or died after. I mean, there was a lot of disheartened artists who left him that he raised up. On and on. And now this large growing number of people who are alleging crazy stuff about him. And these are things that people in the industry have been hearing about.
It's giving R. Kelly, Touré. It's disturbing.
I was personally disturbed many years ago. Okay. I know this man well enough to call him and say, hey, I need a favor.
Yeah.
And this might have been 10, 12 years ago that I called him and say, hey, I have a family member who I want you to hire them as an intern.
Yeah.
And
so there's a couple of things we're getting a window into. We're getting a window into how this is not a merit-based system. You just saw him pick up a phone and say, hey, get my relative a job. I don't know anybody I could do that with. So the black bourgeoisie doing the same shit that the white bourgeoisie does. And then the second thing is there's a lot of these stories, Torre, for example, but none of you guys came out when he was all on the stage saying, take that, take that, take that, making money. When other people come out, now everybody want to tell their stories. Your story would have helped earlier, maybe. But let's listen to what he says, and then we'll close out this segment.
I have never talked about this publicly, and he said yes, and they were flying around, one of the interns, Atlanta, Miami, whatever, on the jet, in the house, whatever. And then the internship stopped abruptly, like 3 or 4 months into it.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my family member, like, well, what happened? And they wouldn't say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did it end? He wouldn't say. And years later, they finally came out, and this a male, and said that Puff had said, come home, stay the night with me, or the internship is over. And they said, absolutely not. He said, absolutely not. And the internship ended. But from there.
So that's how his relative internship ended. So as a bunch of people in the industry, you see how the people, the professional managerial class or just the bourgeoisie class, what they value their own self-interest first. They value keeping their status, their money, their position, instead of coming forward and telling the story of abuse, it sounds like here. He said, oh, well, okay, well, I guess I'll keep my mouth shut. And this happened all over the place. What I'm wondering is what Mace, who was at his hip for so long when Notorious B.I.G., Christopher Wallace died or was killed. I'm just wondering, what stories does he have? What stories does Usher have? Usher lived with him pre-18. What stories does Justin Bieber have? Is that how you say his name? Bieber? Pre-18. Brought in by the previous pre-18 guy, Usher. So, I mean, it's a lot of questions, and it sounds like we'll see what happens, but it sounds like this guy was living life thinking that he could just do whatever and thought money would save him, and it doesn't look like that's what's happening.
I was like, oh, like this is how it goes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So to hear that things went even further with potentially, allegedly, many other people, it's not, we feel like we've seen this coming.
Well, there was the situation with obviously Russell Simmons, who does not live in the United States any further.
Mm-hmm.
You've had these situations obviously with.
Wow, I didn't know that about Russell Simmons. They kind of go off and they come back to him, but we're going to close it here. But, just know this is an evolving story. We'll see what happens after they collect the evidence and, what happens. But right now, that is the latest on the story. And this is just showing you everybody has something to say about it.